Hi, fourth graders. Today we're going to talk about what characters really want, because often what the character wants is the root of the story's problem. So as we're reading different parts of our stories today and thinking about what our characters really want, I want you to notice the words character, motivations. What motivates you is just what you want. So it's making you do the things that you do. So what you want is your motivation. The dialogue is when characters are speaking to each other. And of course, their behavior is how they act. So let's start with our book, Heroes. And I'm going to start at the beginning of the book and just remind you of some of the actions. I want you to think about Donnie and what is motivating him, what he wants. My dad drove me to school every morning, but I wished he wouldn't. That was because other kids walking to school always turned around and stared. Some pointed, and others pretended their fingers were guns and aimed at us. "How come we're always the bad guys?" I asked my dad. "That's only in the movies," he replied. Still, if I could talk my dad into it, I had him pull the truck over and drop me off down the street from school. Okay, so we're thinking about how he's having his dad drop him off down the street from school. After school, I got together with my friends. I tried to start a football game, but they wanted to play war. Again. That was because they had an enemy to fight. Me. Tori had all the toy guns, and Zach and Reggie always helped bring them to the woods at the end of the street where I met them. Zach usually brought something that was his dad's. He showed us pictures of his father in the war, or some of his medals. He was a war hero, Zach said, and then repeated how I always had to be the enemy when we played war because I looked like them. Notice how unhappy he looks. "Get moving, Donnie," Zach commanded. "You're the bad guy, and we're going to hunt you down." "No, I'm not," I protested. "My dad was in our army, and he fought in Italy and France, and my Uncle Yosh was in Korea." "No way," Zach said. "How could your dad or uncle be in our army?" Tori asked. "Yeah," Reggie agreed. "There wasn't anybody looking like you guys on our side. If you can't prove it, you better start hiding, Donnie." I couldn't prove it, so I had to be the bad guy again. I hated it. Still, it was better than having no friends at all. All right, so if we think about what Donnie does here, what he wants, he's motivated by what he wants. And it seems to me that what he wants is to be treated like everybody else. He doesn't want to be different. He has a different look to him, and he looks like the enemy from World War II. And he doesn't like that. So what motivates him is that he wants to be like everybody else. He wants to look like them and be treated the same. So notice how the problem all stems because he wants to be just like everybody else. Here's another example. Ruth and the Green Book. So let's think about Daddy in this story. I'm going to read a couple of pages here. This is when they stopped at the hotel. "I was tired when Daddy stopped the automobile. I asked Mama where we were, and she said we were going to spend the night in a real hotel. We watched Daddy talking to the man behind the desk. Daddy was smiling and pointing to us, but the man shook his head and turned his back. Daddy came back out and slammed the car door. He never slammed the door before, so I knew he was mad. I wondered what happened, but I knew somehow it wasn't a good time to ask him. Mama gave me a look that said, 'Ruth, just keep quiet.' So that's what I did." Now here I'm thinking, what does Daddy want? I think that Daddy probably wants to be treated fairly. if he's got money, he should be able to stay at a hotel. He wants to take care of his family. So I think he wants to be treated fairly, and that is probably what's motivating him and what is making him angry. All right, next part that I want to show you. When we crossed into Tennessee, Daddy said his friend Eddie lived close by. He was sure we could sleep there. Eddie was so happy to see us. He gave me a big hug and told me that he knew me when I was real little. His wife Alice cooked us a warm meal, and I ate too much. Daddy and Eddie used to play music in a band before they went off and fought in the war. They talked about how they traveled a lot back then, and how they always had a hard time finding places to rest and eat. Daddy shook his head and said he had hoped that the war had changed things, but now he could see he was wrong. So again, Daddy wants to be treated fairly. He wants to be treated like everyone else. And so he feels better when he goes to see Eddie and he finds a place for his family to be safe and sleep because he's treated like other people. Let's go back to the Junkyard Wonders. This was a favorite of a lot of people I know. And let's look at how Trisha is motivated and what she wants. At recess that day, I couldn't wait to ask Tom, why is our class called the Junkyard? Because we are, didn't you notice? All of us are different, you know, odd. Like stuff in a junkyard. He turned toward the playground. See that super tall kid over there? That's Jody Beach. He's got some disease that makes him grow too fast. He's my bodyguard. No one picks on me when he's around. He smiled. Over there, that kid, that's Gibby McDonald. He has Tourette's. There's Stuart Bean. He has diabetes. Me? Well, I have trouble seeing. They call me Sissy Boy, because even so, I love ballet. It's my life. I take ballet too. At least I did in California. I knew there was something about you that I liked, Tom said. I felt I had found a soulmate in Tom, and since he thought Jody was nifty, so did I. But it only helped a little. When I got home that night, I told Dad and Grandma about my day. I tried to be brave and not let them know how sad I really was. But just as Dad was tucking me in at bedtime, I finally burst into tears. Oh, Daddy, I've been put in a special class again. It's called the Junkyard. Junkyard? What junkyard? My dad asked. That's what everybody calls our class. Darlin', my dad said, you are not a quitter. Stick it out for a month. If the class doesn't get better, I promise I'll send you back to California. I didn't tell him that when I tried to sit with Kay and her friends at lunch, she said that junkyard kids couldn't sit at their table. All right, so I'm thinking what Trisha wants from the things that she did is that she wants to be treated fairly. She doesn't want to be different, similar to Donnie and Daddy in Ruth in the Green Book. She wants to be treated like everyone else, and she doesn't want to be seen as different. And so, do you see how the motivation, what people want, is usually what the problem of the book is all about? Because the main character is trying to solve the problem that they have, and that is what motivates them to take the actions that they do. So as you're reading in your fiction today, I want you to pay attention to what your characters want, especially the main character, and see if that leads you to the problem. What characters really want usually leads to the main problem in a story. and the characters' efforts to solve the problem make up most of the plot. Remember, the plot is the events of the story, what everything is about. So really pay attention to your characters. Use some post-it notes again to make some notes, and when we come together for class, you can let us know what motivates your character. Happy reading.